I am really, really disappointed.
I just think that the world is about to end, not to panic anyone.
This topic is one that it's actually really irritated me and disappointed me in equal measure. I think you were the one who wanted to talk about it, Chaya.
I do, because honestly, it's what everyone's talking about. And I might just keep on my sunglasses the whole way through because I'm so tired from watching hour-long footage
I know,
of
I
this.
have been squirreling away around YouTube. I think I must have watched, if I say days of footage, that might be a slight exaggeration, but I have watched so many videos now about this topic.
We have deeply researched for you. Today's episode is on a very, very pressing controversy in the literary world. And I think we are on the edge of disaster. We're on the precipice. And we're going to be looking at AI literary scandals.
I am Sophie.
I'm Chaya.
And welcome back to the Bibliophiles.
What happens when a book scandal isn't just about truth, but about technology bias and who we choose to punish? And I actually think the word punish is very pertinent because the backlash in some of these scandals that we're going to be looking at, and obviously the most pressing one which just happened, is very pernicious.
I think what's interesting as well is we're talking about this as a book scandal, but it has very much exploded into the mainstream because this was, I think on the weekend, it was page 3 of the Times. So this is something that's being talked about everywhere because this scandal, it's setting a precedent for what comes next when it comes to AI and publishing, literature, whatever, what we're putting out there.
Everything.
And AI. Yeah, it is fascinating and infuriating.
It touches upon everything.
And my nerve. It touches a nerve massively.
Sophie is so stressed out about this. We are talking about the controversy surrounding Shy Girl. Shy Girl is a book that was initially self-published by Mia Ballard. And it is about a toxic relationship, a girl that becomes almost animalized by a powerful male figure.
Yeah, Gia. She is massively OCD and she effectively becomes Nathan's pet. And I haven't read the book, but from what I understand, he says that if he can effectively keep her as a pet, all her debts will be paid off. And that's the premise. From what I understand, as I said, not read it, not going to. And neither.
I don't think
anyone will ever get the chance.
No. So it was first self-published and then it was picked up by one of the big 5. So 2025, it's self-published, a visceral horror novel that starts to gain traction online and it climbs the charts, guys. When I'm telling you that the publishing landscape is changing dramatically from day to day. Publishers are watching Kindle Unlimited charts, which are self-published books that no one's touched, no one but the author. And then if anything starts picking up traction, they pick it up. They pick up those authors and then they start pitching to authors ideas. It's insane.
You were speaking to publishers about this, weren't you? And they said that is now what they are doing.
Their biggest titles are books that you can already buy. It's fascinating to me.
But this one, Shy Girl, was published in the UK, wasn't it, at the end of last year? Am I right? Like around November time. And it's now been pulled. I want to make a point, though. There were people who, even before it came out in any kind of mainstream form, already on Goodreads and Reddit, there were people prior to publication who were saying, this book has 100% been written by AI. There were those who loved it, who gave it great reviews, but those criticisms and those, I guess, observances were there. Like, actually, this is a bit weird. Does anyone think that this book might be AI? But those voices were quieter. So they weren't necessarily picked up on. I will say that, and again, I apologise if this is inaccurate. I don't know 100% how this happened, but from what I understand, the first cover of the book, and I think it's in the self-published version,
you're right,
was actually a rip-off. She had taken an author's work. It's an image of a dog, and that, forget the text, the cover had literally been stolen from this other author.
No, it's
and
from
this illustrator or photographer.
Pinterest. No,
Pinterest.
I've looked into this.
Right.
You're 100% right.
So that to me, that doesn't bode well. But I mean, that's not necessarily something that would symbolise what's to come and how drastic it would be, but not a great starting point.
The foreshadowing was there.
Indeed,
You're right. So the image was taken from Pinterest and the creator wasn't credited. And then, as I understand, Ballard apologised. For me, this taps into such a broader cultural anxiety that we're going to talk about. But the suspicion was there because of hugely repetitive phrasing, a very odd emotional tone, and stylistic inconsistencies. Now, I've got to tell you, I found someone on Instagram that was doing a live read, and they captured in their highlights screenshots of the book. So I've got pages and pages of this book screenshotted in my phone. The amount of repetition, the amount of editing issues is staggering.
Well, I want to give credit here to Frankie's Shelf. They put out a video in January, I believe it was. It was a 3-hour analysis, deep dive.
It was an academic
of this
analysis,
book.
absolutely.
And they actually tallied up the repetition. So the word sharp was used 159 times as a way, like with an adjective. So sharp and jagged, sharp and terrifying, sharp and merciless, sharp and relentless, sharp and electric, sharp and bitter. I mean, 159 times. I think edge is another one that was used obscenely, like to the extent of it was edge with the edges of something abstract about
Which didn't
90
make
times.
sense
Made
at
no
times.
sense.
I know. And when I looked at some of those screenshots, you have passages that are then replicated and regurgitated down the page. So it's almost
And the
as if
line breaks, I think. There was even
everything was wrong
to
with
that extent.
Everything was wrong about this book. Now, it's so interesting because sometimes this can be done for creative purposes. There is the most phenomenal book, little book recommendation that I promise you is not AI.
Oh, which?
Little Scratch.
You read that quite a long time ago,
Scratch
didn't you?
by Rebecca Watson, I think, is the most phenomenal book. And the words are all over the page, but it symbolises the fracturing of her identity following a sexual assault. And you literally see the words trail off. Someone else that did that is
Maddie Mortimer.
Maddie Mortimer did that.
Max Porter and Lanny uses words in that
you
way.
love that book.
But this is different. This just looks rubbish.
Yeah, it did. It was. I think the point is that the editing issues weren't there stylistically to kind of give you the sense of that fracturing of the identity. Or in Agostina Baztarica's new book,
I love it when you say that.
The Unworthy, which is the baby of The Handmaid's Tale and I Who Have Known for No Men, and I love that book and I will never stop talking about it. She's writing, the narrator is writing in secret, and sometimes the words trail off the page because she can't finish the
text
sentence.
trails off.
Isn't that amazing?
As if it's been written.
As if it's
I
been
love that.
It's fantastic.
Love that.
And that is a horror book that Mia Ballard wishes she could produce. No offence.
I think what has bothered me so much about this Mia Ballard situation is that it's now come to light. The book has been pulled from UK retailers from the shelves. It's not going to come out in the US. Hachette has stopped that. What's bothered me, though, is that according to, it went through some AI processor, and I don't know what it's called, and it was said that 78% of the book is AI. Now, some people have taken issue with that statistic, but the fact is an awful lot of this book clearly was written by AI, right? She has come out and released a statement, I think to the New York Times, saying how her mental health is now at an all-time low. Of course it would be. I mean, this must be incredibly difficult for her. But she's also said, I didn't do it. It was someone who was helping me with this. How can you not see it? And also Hachette, how could you not realise this? I find that bizarre. And maybe I've not dug deep enough. And I hold my hands up. I've not read the book. But to me, as a reader, and many other readers were able to gauge with this. Do you think maybe they did know, but they thought it had done so well as a self-published title that, maybe we can get away with it? I don't know.
This is where my blood pressure rises because I don't feel there has been any accountability from the publisher.
None.
Now, when it's a self-published book, in the end of the day, when you are buying a self-published book on Kindle Unlimited, it could be anything. And we are going to come later on in the episode to some astonishing, mind-boggling facts about self-published books and people openly using AI. No, not even openly. They're running courses to tell people how to produce 10 books a day. Don't even ask. We're going to get into it. But this is a book that's been published, that has been picked up by one of the big publishers. Where is the accountability? Where's the scrutiny? Where's that process? Where's those statements? Mia Ballard has been left holding the baby. With all due respect, the moment it got picked up by a publisher, it's not her full problem. I'm sorry. And you worked in publishing. You know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone silent about that. About what happens when a self-published book is picked up. What processes are undertaken to ensure that the quality of the book or the text is, what's the barometer it comes up against?
This is the first time that a case like this has kind of, I guess, come to light in this way, but this is by no means the first time that there has been controversy surrounding some really big books.
Indeed. Before we get to that, I mean, I know that your blood pressure is very high at this point because Sophie is such a perfectionist. So the idea, I almost didn't want to send you the screenshots. I'm not being funny. You know how everyone's like, oh my God, some people worked out as AI. Look at one page of this book, you'll feel ill. But you are feeling okay about this because you have...
Well, I have been keeping up with my new routine of drinking London Nootropics' adaptogenic coffee.
So even in these highly stressful times where we are on the precipice of disaster because AI is going to change everything.
It does help. I'm not going to pretend I'm 100% okay because this is a very contentious topic. But if I was perhaps not drinking it, I'd definitely be less okay. I definitely think it helps me with my flow, with my focus, and just gives me a bit of calm at the beginning of the day that does last all day.
Adaptogens are derived from mushrooms.
And they include things like lion's mane, rhodiola. Each different sachet has different adaptogens in, but they still contain enough caffeine to keep you feeling good throughout the day. But I tend to find that I have one of these in the morning and that's enough for me.
Which is astonishing because you were the girl that was drinking 5 to 6 cups of coffee a day.
That is true. That is true.
We have a discount code because they very kindly sponsor this podcast, Biblio. Go on to londonnootropics.com and order yourself a batch.
And find your flow.
We were looking at other book scandals because I think though the AI as a topic is going to impact our entire world, I imagine I'm going to watch this podcast back in 10 years' time and think, haha, you did not even realise what you were saying. But publishers rely largely on author honesty about AI use. And they also rely on honesty about how true a memoir is, right? We're going to get to some massive scandals, but I have to pick up the funniest thing, which is that, you know how we say anyone could have seen that this was AI?
Yeah.
There was a post on Instagram of text going, oh my God, look at all the M dashes in this text. It must be AI.
Really bothers me.
And it was Sense and Sensibility from Jane Austen.
I love an M dash. I write with M dashes. I always have. I hate a short dash. It's been my business over the years to always use M dashes. And now I'm apparently a bot because I use an M dash. Or if you use a comma before an and, that means that it look. And so that means now it's so much. There's so much self-editing because it's not my fault that chat's claimed kind of bits of my writing style, but that is what's happened. So now I have to be so careful about what I use because it might look like ChatGPT or whatever.
So not only are we living in a culture of fear where no one believes that what you're producing is real because you've used 2 M dashes, and literally there were people on this post going, can't believe this text is pretending to be a classic. It's literally written before computers were invented. But there's also this entire culture of panic that people are questioning other self-published books like Daggermouth, which has been picked up for publishing by one of the big 5, and it's going to be an absolutely huge dystopia coming up in the next few months. And people are going, 1 minute, there's a gender issue here, there's a racial issue here, because when we look at other literary scandals, what people faced, like the next person that we're going to be talking about, is very, very different to what Mia Ballard faced. And I think that is a really important point. We are coming to James Fry.
James Fry, A Million Little Pieces. I think that book came out it was the early 2000s. I think it was 2004. I read it at the time. I thought it was brilliant. I was entirely immersed. This was a memoir written by James Fry, and it was all about his life battling addiction. It was picked up by Oprah. It was her book club pick, and it became, I mean, it was stratospheric.
Oh, really?
He went on the show. It was all so huge. It was so successful. And then it started to unravel when it became apparent that a number of things in the book had been hugely exaggerated. So I think I made a couple of notes. Oh dear, I made actually quite a lot of notes. But there were things in there. So he made one point that he'd had his teeth taken out without anaesthetic. He'd made a point that he'd been in prison for quite a long time, and he wasn't at all. I don't know that he went in. I think he had a mugshot taken. There was one bit where I think it was said that it was like he'd committed this massive like DUI offence, but it was actually very, very small. It was a huge exaggeration, and people took a lot of issue with that. And there was a lot of backlash, and Oprah called him back on the show and literally went into him hard. I think he was I don't know if his editor joined him on the show that day, but that you cannot find that interview.
Oh, I was going to
online.
ask, where is it?
No, and I think Oprah doesn't have many of her interviews online, but that one is really hard to find. You can find the transcript, but not the video itself. And I have read that she apologised to him sometime after that interview. But obviously this is not AI. It's a very different kind of scandal. It's about truth. And that is massively linked with AI. But now it's very interesting because James Fry is an author who has talked very openly about using AI in his later books.
And this is where the disparity is being called into question. So I think the James Fry example, which we're going to talk about in, quickly, the Salt Path. I mean, that's a very recent scandal.
That was last year, wasn't it?
About the fabrication and the over-embellishment, or the absolute falsehoods provided.
It's exaggeration, falsehood, what's the level? One comment, I did actually watch a James Fry interview, and I know a lot of people do not have a lot of positive things to say about James Fry. I mean, his book sales have still been brilliant. I mean, despite it all, in a way you wonder if this scandal helped him. He sold about 3.5 million copies of A Million Little Pieces, and he's done well since. But he made this comment, which I actually found quite funny. And he said, this was the authentic truth, like as I felt it. And when he's talking about a memoir, he says, did Picasso's self-portrait look exactly like Picasso?
That is such bullshit, Sophie.
I just quite liked
no,
that.
It's ridiculous.
But
it's
I think
stupid.
That is the
stupidest thing I've ever heard.
He was very keen to say that I turned it up to get the feeling. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but even Oprah, I believe, apologised to him afterwards.
I'm sorry. If you're presenting your life as truth, and it's a memoir, and it's not fiction. We had a massive fight about the JFK love story because it's based on real life events, but it's fictional. Well, a memoir has not got the word, okay, it's non-fiction. It's not, there's nowhere that it's saying it's fiction. It's the Salt Path all over again. Picasso's self-portrait is abstract. It's art. A memoir...
Isn't a memoir art?
No! A memoir is supposed to be an account.
I just think it's fascinating.
People almost see them as witness statements.
It's a fascinating argument, but he's very open, James Fry, about using AI.
And that's the insanity.
But I think that is why Mia Ballard, I feel very disappointed in, because... I don't believe that a book, which lets that 78% figure, whatever, but I don't believe that a book that has that much content that is generated by AI, I don't believe that the author can say, oh, it wasn't me, it was someone else. That doesn't sit well with me. At least James Fry says, well, I use chat for this, it helps me with that, and I've tried it to see if it can use my style. I think that's, I slightly respect that in a weird way.
Well, let's give content. We actually haven't explained that James Fry, how that has unraveled.
Yes, that's a more recent thing.
So his A Million Little Pieces was lambasted. However, Let us all have the confidence of a white man, Sophie, because you would think that post such a controversy, one would be persona non grata. However,
he was persona non
and
grata.
yet he continued to
but
publish.
He was persona non grata. He was literally vilified on TV. He went into almost a state of like, I don't know, like he didn't talk to press. He's not really.
But then he continued to publish books. Mia Ballard's books are not going to sell. No one's picking up her books. James Fry, on the other hand, carries on writing, and then he writes a new book, which he then accepts and talks about using AI. Next to Heaven is the book title. He is interviewed by the New York Times. He openly states he used AI to mimic his writing style so you can tell what is AI generated. And his phrase, the quote is...
I have to interrupt.
One minute. It was the writer who decided, I am the writer, I decide what to put on the page. Yes, in later interviews, he has now backtracked and said, no, I'm using it as a research assistant. He's retained his career. That's the disparity for me.
I think the challenge, I suppose, he's been open about it.
I agree that is a
But I think
distinguishing.
even if she was, would she have? I don't know. It's really hard to say. But when you look at her book,
I agree.
It is so abysmal. Like
It's
the
abysmal.
extent is embarrassing.
No, and I agree with you. And I think the distinguishing point about James Fry,
And I'm not here to
acknowledging-
say I think James Fry is a great bloke, which I almost feel is slightly your implication here. But I do think that there is something that comes with the honesty around the topic.
Agreed.
And yes, you can say he's a white male and he has that ability to be honest. But I think James Fry is often considered to be one of the first victims of cancel culture. Fact. Like, you can look that up. And I'm not saying that was... I mean, I think that is widely held to be the case. He was cancelled, and in many ways correctly. So you can't just say, oh, well, he's fine now. It's all been great for him, because I don't think that's the case. Yes, he's retained a career, but I think, when you look back to what happened at the time, it was not smooth sailing.
No,
he did not get away with it.
And actually, if you look at, so we've got a few other case studies that we're going to run through, because I want to get to this romance scandal, which I think is a massive scandal. So you've got the Salt Path Raina Wynn, where there was a very interesting investigative journalist. Now there's a documentary that looks at authenticity, narrative truth versus emotional truth. And I mean, she's been cancelled, don't you think?
Yes, although she put some interesting statements on her website about it. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. There's a lot of things there, I think, with them, that the lies that were told affect so many people. It's not just about their own experience. It's kind of what they portrayed happened to them, about how they lost that money.
And his illness.
Although, again, she's put up a lot of documents on their website that are from doctors saying, well, he does have this illness and it's CBD, CBS, and it's complicated. But ultimately, they're clearly a fraud. Like, parts of the story are absolutely a fraud. And there was the embezzlement of money, and it's
all alleged, we should point
It's
out.
all alleged.
These are
Exactly.
all allegations.
Exactly.
You found a fascinating plagiarism scandal, which I wasn't aware of. How Opal Meta got kissed, got wild, and got a life in 2006.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, because I think with that book, she was quite a young writer, I think very, very young. And she had literally, it was almost a copy-paste job.
No way.
I think, from what I understand, it was literally a copy-paste job. I mean, there are so many controversies surrounding books that have been published. Like, we can go back, things like American Dirt, a book that I actually took off my own shelf because I felt so uncomfortable owning it at the time when that scandal happened.
What happened with American
But
Dirt?
that was quite different. Again, another Oprah pick that... I mean, it's the story of Lydia and her son, and it opens with a very violent shooting at a quinceañera, and they are desperate to get across the border. Now, there was a lot of, there were issues surrounding the author's background, but a lot of the problem that came with this text was the very cliched, stereotypical way that she portrayed. It was like a fantasy version of Mexico, the culture.
Oh,
it was all
so interesting.
the violence, the quinceanera with the shootout. And it was really uncomfortable to watch and read the stories surrounding that. I actually felt really uncomfortable about that book, which is hard. And you know, again, you can see both sides to this. It's a very different matter to AI.
Yes. And so it's interesting because the question is, would you read a book that had that controversy? Like, would anyone pick up A Million Little Pieces now, or The Salt Path? I would be fascinated to know what they were selling, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But coming back to AI, you've got the controversies, and I think you're 100% right. If James Fry is now saying, I'm using AI as a research assistant, I mean, we were just told by our producers about Matt Goodwin, who's now being called Matt GPT. Matt Goodwin is a reform candidate who stood in the Gorton and Denton by-election, and his book it's called
The Suicide of a Nation.
And the URLs and some of his footnotes contains the ChatGPT
Well, I think
source code.
I think there were only 12 footnotes in the entire book. Most of them linked to the first chapter, and yes, you can still see I think it's the ChatGPT source code embedded into the links, which is so ridiculous.
It's absolutely frightening because we're using AI more and more in our lives, and it's getting more and more knowledge. And
the New York Times just sacked a reporter literally yesterday for a book reviewer because their book review relating to a specific book was completely plagiarized from The Guardian, and ChatGPT had done that, or whatever chat service it was. And it was virtually the same article, chunks of it at least.
So AI is plagiarizing. But the point is, this is my real concern. So if you know I love fantasy. I love fantasy. I love romantasy. And these are really formulaic books. They really are.
Yeah.
They're trope-led.
Yeah.
And AI is being used to write these books. So there was an article called The New Fabio is Claude. And it was about the lack of regulation. And it had an author called Coral Hart, which is a pseudonym. And this is an individual who wrote a novel during the interview. She showed the journalist the prompts that they were being given.
It's all about the prompts.
It's all about the prompts. She has, in 8 months, created 21 pen names, published dozens of novels, sold 50,000 copies from 200 novels. She now coaches people to use AI. She talks about that romance accounts for over 20% of adult sales, and that the problem with these programs, these LLMs, these large language models, is they are refusing to write sexually explicit content, but there's ways to circumvent that.
Right.
And they are literally giving all these prompts, and she's saying, it takes you a year to write a book, it's taking me 45 minutes.
Interestingly, a friend of mine every night has write chapters of a children's book because their kids get so bored. And you know, we know books are an expense, and kids are reading. If they're reading, that's great, but they want variety. So my friend literally asks Chat, write a story featuring the names of their children and give me a few chapters, and each night adds a few chapters to this book that is a totally original ChatGPT story. And apparently it's great.
Okay, so we come to this question. Would you read a book that had been written or assisted by AI?
Would I read it? I would be interested to read it. I like to think that if I'd read Shy Girl, I would know that was AI. I'd like to think I would be like Frankie and be like, this is a pile of rubbish. I know this is AI. I think if someone was open about it, and probably it's about the way that it's used, I don't think I'd be interested to read a book that's totally AI generated. But if there were elements that AI had been used for, I might just want to read it from that perspective. But I wouldn't want to read Shy Girl. No, I absolutely wouldn't.
I think it's a really frightening time. There was at the London Book Fair, there was a whole big thing about these authors writing a book, which was just their names. And they have introduced a human-created sticker for books that are not touched by AI.
That's just...
Because authors are so worried about the fact that, you know, art and the whole premise of human creativity is now being impacted
I
potentially
I
by
also
AI.
think it's that point that you make is that it's one thing when you can tell it's written by chat, but it's another when you ask it to mimic your style and or write in a different style and because it can do that too. So that's frightening.
It's really frightening. I think
It's how you use it. I think I would be interested to see what a totally ChatGPT decent novel might turn out like.
I think it would frighten us, actually.
Not one that just is a shoddy job.
I think it would be really frightening, actually, because I think if I think about the book Buckeye that we just read for our book club, the level of introspection into
And
those
8
characters,
years of work and
right?
research.
I don't think AI is going to be able to replicate that because it does not do human emotion well. It cannot understand. And it's interesting, in the romance article they were talking about, ChatGPT doesn't understand slow burn or like the nuances of these tropes. So that real tension between two characters, it's very hard to replicate. But I think the more that these language models learn, and the more we put into them,
and the more
it's going to come out.
more that we learn how to use them, as in with the right prompts, that makes a massive difference too.
So what should the publishers do?
Well, I think they certainly need to. There has to be, I think, more of a vetting. To me, it's just ridiculous that this got to the extent it did with Shy Girl. And I don't know, is it that the New York Times apparently, or I don't know if it was the New York Times or even Hachette, do authors now need to sign something to say, I did read this somewhere, sign some kind of document about whether or not they had used AI. I feel like that is now done, but that doesn't necessarily detect it. I guess you can just lie, can't you?
How are you ever going to find out?
But it's also like with the Salt Path, it was a journalist who uncovered at the Observer what had actually gone on. Should a publisher be doing a journalistic level of research?
What is the due diligence?
To be honest, I don't know. And I think it's really hard to, yes, you can get someone to sign papers and you'd like to think that you'd know. And yes, we can say, I'd know if it was me reading it.
I think Shy Girl's a very extreme version. And this is the point. Should the arts be protected? And should publishers we are standing on the precipice. I keep on saying this. This is going to happen more and more. In the next 2 years, I reckon you are going to have so many books be pulled apart, people questioning whether they're AI or not. And I just think our imagination needs to be protected. And ChatGPT is only basing what it's doing on what's come before, which means originality is going to disappear.
But I also don't think that it's all bad. I think you can use it. Like, I think there are ways that it can be used, probably for the good. It's just
In books?
It's just really difficult. No, because I think it can be used as a helpful, almost like a search tool. It gives you answers. ChatGPT can give you certain answers much quicker.
And it can create them, as Matt Goodwin has found out.
ChatGPT.
As many others have found out, it can create
It's
and fabricate facts and
there
present them as truth.
There is so much more to say on this topic. It's really quite, it's mind-boggling, really.
It's really frightening. I think I would be fascinated to know what listeners think. Would you, if we are coming to a point where books are going to have stickers saying untouched by AI or assisted by AI?
Maybe that's what publishers need to do.
What are readers going to think?
Yeah. And what would you go for?
What would you go for? Would you read a book that had been assisted if an author had been assisted in the process of using AI? Maybe they're using it just to plot things.
And what is assistance exactly? Maybe it's to plot, maybe it's to
grammar
iron
checks.
Out. Exactly. But if it's to write 78% of a story, quite frankly, I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me at all.
Can I say something really controversial? I'm convinced Stephen King is AI.
Why?
I just don't understand how he produces books at that level.
He's been doing that for quite a long time before AI.
I know, he's not AI. But don't you think that, there's so many books that he produces and I'm like,
I know.
Does he have 5
It's
writers sitting in a basement
somewhere? Well, it's a
somewhere?
bit like those great artists during the Renaissance who had their whole school of artists with them. It still was under Giotto's name, but actually it could have been one of his students. I don't know. I'm a writer from the school of Stephen King. I don't know.
It's really frightening.
It's quite weird.
I think this is a really frightening topic.
I'd love to know what other people think about it, actually, and all these different controversies, because they all, they come under one umbrella, but they are linked in terms of the morals and values and ethics surrounding them,
Agreed. Like ghostwriters, plagiarists, AI collaborators, readers' trust is fragile. And I think that our interest is going to drop more and more. And I don't think I would ever read a book that was in part written by
I
AI.
think I might write one. Oh my gosh, it's your birthday soon. Maybe I'm
Don't
going to
you
write
dare.
you a little novel.
Fourth wing fan
Yeah,
fiction.
fourth wing fan fiction starring you. I'm going to do it. I haven't got long. Better get on it.
Don't worry, darling, because AI can do it in 45 minutes. You'll be
You're right.
finished it by
You're
the
right.
time you get
You're
home.
right.
That's the scary
No,
thing.
but I will want to make sure that it doesn't say sharp 159 times. That will irritate me. I'll probably have to edit it.
Do you know that I stopped reading a book this week because it used the word smirk twice on the same page?
But
and I
that
was
is
like,
annoying.
Dumb.
I thought you were going to say sentence, but page. Oh, that's quite tough. Yeah.
Page, smirk. Stop smirking.
there you go.
Romanticy people, stop using the word smirk. Oh my God, it's so irritating. I think I need some nootropics. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for making
We
the time.
will be back next week with a whole host of book recommendations.
Underrated gems, isn't it, next week?
Yes.
We really look forward to
That's
sharing
your
those with you.
forte.
Yeah, I enjoy that.
Sophie loves being able to say only 7 people have read this book in the world.
7,
and
I prefer
I'm
2.
one of them.
One of 2. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.